Hi, I'm Jay. Today we're going to talk about lenses. And you beginners usually ask the question, what lens should I buy? Or what additional lens should I get after buying my first SLR or mirrorless camera kit? Before you can answer that, you need to ask yourself first, what kind of photography you would love to do? Is it portrait? Is it food, products, sports, wildlife, landscape? What type of photography you would like to focus on will dictate what lens you should have in your camera bag. A wildlife photographer will have a different set of lenses compared to an architectural photographer. There are two types of lenses. We have the zoom lens and the prime lens. The one that comes with the SLR is usually the zoom type. Why is it called the zoom lens? Because it is a lens that has a variable focal length. Meaning, if you're shooting at 18 millimeter and then you decide, hey, I want to shoot using a 35 focal length, you don't need to remove the lens. You just simply rotate the zoom ring and keep on shooting. And if you decide, hey, I want to use a 50, then there's no need to remove the lens. You just zoom into somewhere there where it's 50 and then keep on shooting. So basically, a zoom lens provides convenience. You don't need to take a lot of lenses in the field and then have that cumbersome action of removing, attaching, removing, attaching. So basically, it's more of about convenience. Prime lenses obviously cannot zoom because they only have a single focal length, like in this case, the 85 millimeter. So that means if you would like a tighter view or you want a closer view, then you cannot zoom in. You have to walk or go closer to your subject. And if you need to zoom out, you cannot just simply zoom out because there's no zoom ring here. You have to walk back so that the view will be wider in your viewfinder. So how come prime lenses are still popular despite the inconvenience? Prime lenses are relatively sharper and has better contrast compared to zoom lenses. Well, assuming that both lenses in comparison have the same lens material. Another is that prime lenses are relatively faster. What we mean by faster is that they have a bigger maximum opening or aperture compared to zoom lenses. And how would you know that? Well, that would be indicated by the numbers here next to the focal length. So in this case, it says 85 millimeter, and then 1 is to 1.4. Okay? The rule is the lower the number, the bigger the maximum opening. And that means it can gather light faster, or it can gather basically more light. Now, in contrast to this zoom lens, which is obviously more convenient to handle or use because you don't need to remove and change lenses, the focal length is 18 to 55, but the ratio or the speed is 1 is to 3.5 to 5.6. And because it's a bigger number, it means the maximum opening is relatively smaller compared to what you have here in the 85. And if you're buying a zoom lens, I would recommend getting a lens that only has one speed. So an example would be 24 to 70, and the speed is 1 is to 2.8. So what's the benefit if you get a lens that has a bigger maximum opening? Well, if you like that effect wherein you can really blur the background, having a bigger maximum opening would really help. And it will also help when it comes to shooting in low light. And it could also help if you're trying to freeze action in a relatively low light situation as well. Now, zoom lenses, consumer grade type, are only of the around 3.5 to 5.6, whereas professional grade zoom lenses can go as big as 1 is to 2.8. So if I were you, I would go for the one with the consumer grade prime lenses have an opening of 1.8, like for example the 50 millimeter 1.8, but the professional level ones have an opening of 1.4 and sometimes 1.2. Now, as for the focal length, what should you get? Well, the rule is the shorter the focal length, like 18 millimeter, the view will be wider. So that's perfect for landscapes or interior and architecture. And the longer the focal length, like let's say 85 millimeter and 105 millimeter, the view will be tighter, but the view, or the subject rather, will be much closer. So it's perfect for close-ups and for long-distance shooting. So if you're a wildlife photographer, probably you will have to get at least 400 and better if longer, like 600. If you are an interior or architectural photographer, you can use the 18 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and if you're using a crop sensor camera, get an ultra wide like 10 to 22, or if you're using a full frame, maybe like the 16 to 35 millimeter. My 85 millimeter, this is what I use when taking portraits, and this 105 millimeter is what I use when I'm taking food, product, and jewelry, because this is a macro lens. So a macro lens is a lens that can focus much closer compared to a regular type of lens, regardless if it's zoom or prime lens. And this one, the 24 millimeter, this is a special type. This is what you call a perspective control or tilt shift lens. So this is wide for my full frame camera body, which is the D810, and this is what I use for interior and architectural shots. If you'd like to know more about lenses and how to use them properly, please visit my website, jalonsophotographyworkshop.com, and you see there the different basic photography workshops that I offer for beginners. Thank you very much. Until the next tip.